Hey, what is up guys? Mr. J313 here from Bro Gaming Official, and yes, I said Mr. J313. I am on T-Boss's account right now to show off his Turian Havoc level 20 and his Turian Infiltrator level 20 because I don't have them at level 20, so I hopped on his account to do build guides on his account so I can focus on the Human Kineticist and probably the Angara Avenger is going to be next most likely. I haven't really decided yet. If you guys would comment down below what you would really like to see after the Human Kineticist and after these builds that I'm doing right now, just let me know down in the comments what you guys want to see more, but let's go ahead and jump into this build. So if you're coming from the last video, or if you have seen the other Turian Havoc build guide, the Bomber, this one is a little bit differently. I am naming this build the Aerial Assault. Now, Aerial Assault, it is one of the passive skills that the Turian Havoc Soldier has, and it is amazing. It is such a nice passive skill to have, and it's really underrated in my opinion from what I've seen people using builds with this character. So, on my weapons, I'm using the Revenant. I feel like, in my personal opinion, it's probably the best out of all of the ARs that you could use for it. I've seen, going through them, you know, this, where is it? The Sound. That could be a good one. I haven't tried it with the build. I might later, but the Thoken would also probably be a good contestant, but I really personally feel like the Revenant is the best for this build because I love that weapon in Mass Effect 3 and it's still pretty damn good in Andromeda. So there will be a couple different things, like real quick on equipment. If you have it, use the Juggernaut Shield. T-Boss does not have it on his account, so I'm going to be using thermal clip storage, but if you have the Juggernaut Shield, use it, because there will be one difference in this build guide that I cannot do, so we'll jump right over to that. Consumables, AR amp, or shield mods would be a good one, or any kind of ammo mod that you would use, a booster. So let's jump into the skills. Incinerate, I put it to the first 3, and that is it. Like I said in the other video, whether you've seen it or not, T-Boss has the Turian Havoc Trooper 6, so we do have a couple extra skill points to play with. Then we're going to go to Turbocharge. We're going to go first 3, then we're going to go bottom, top, bottom. I really feel like duration is going to be much better than recharge speed because you want to be able to have it as long as possible while you're in the air. Then you want the extra damage. Typically, you know, it was hard for me to pick between damage and force versus accuracy and stability, but I feel like damage and force is a little bit better simply because you're not going to be that far away from your targets when you're fighting them from the air, so I really feel like the extra damage would be better, but you know, you could play with it and see how it works. You know, let me know down in the comments which you would prefer to use. And then we're going to go with Dump Heat. Now, Supercharge is a really nice skill to have, but like I said, you want to be in the air shooting as long as possible, so I feel like the 80% clip size bonus is just, it is so nice to have when you're just dumping rounds up in the sky. It's amazing. Now, Flak Cannon, it doesn't really have a big place in this build. It is definitely usable, but it's not the focal point of this build, so we'll only dump the first 3 skills into it. Now, Munitions Training, you're going to go first 3, then you're going to go top, bottom, and then bottom. Now, obviously top you want weapon training for the extra weapon damage because this is focusing on weapon damage while you're in the air. You're going to go bottom for the extra reload, clip size, and spare ammo. You want as much ammo as possible. Now, there is a thing about this build that I can't do simply because I don't have the Juggernaut Shield to work with. Melee synergy, I don't know how I feel about that, but it might be good. That's something I don't know if I would play with, but in Aerial Assault, there is something that I will go over. So I would probably go with Weapon Efficiency over Melee Synergy. And then Precision, I have to give it to Precision. I don't feel like Sustained Fire would take the win over Precision simply because of the extra headshot damage, accuracy, stability, and then shotgun pellet spread reduction. The shotgun, that didn't really affect me because I'm not using a shotgun on this build, so I mean the extra accuracy and stability and headshot damage is totally worth it over the sustained fire. But you know, you can play with it and figure it out, but in my opinion, I'm going to go with Precision. Now, Aerial Assault, the focus of this build. You're going to go first 3, then you go top, top, and top. Now, like I said, the difference in this build on how I would do it if I had Juggernaut Shield to work with, I would run Juggernaut Shield with Dive Bomb. I don't have Juggernaut Shield and I can't test it to see exactly how much damage that is going to do, but a 60% melee damage bonus plus the 75% melee damage bonus from Juggernaut Shield, you're already doing double the melee damage. So obviously that's going to be a pretty nice damage boost right there whenever you're in the air slamming down on the ground, plus a 40% area of effect radius. You're going to be able to hit quite a good radius around you when you're landing, especially if you're hitting a cluster of enemies. It's just a really nice skill to have, but I'm going to use aerial evasion because that's what I have to work with. But like I said, guys, if you're going to try out this build, definitely if you have Juggernaut Shield, go with Dive Bomb instead of aerial evasion, and let me know down in the comments how that works out for you, because I'm really interested to see if it's better than having the extra damage resistance. But having the damage resistance is very nice, especially when you're sustaining yourself in the air, taking out your targets. So obviously you're going to go with hover duration on 4, and then on rank 6 you're going to want aerial engagement for the hover extension boost for killing enemies. It's really nice to have, plus the extra damage resistance and accuracy. I mean, it is, in my personal opinion, so much better than close quarters momentum, because it doesn't fit with close quarters, in my opinion. That's a more on the ground thing. You're not going to be meleeing people from the air, so I don't feel like it has a place in this build. Maybe in another random build with this character that has nothing to do with air combat, it might. Or if you're pairing it up with Dive Bomb, you know, going from the air, jumping down, and just starting beating the shit out of everything below you, it might have a good place there, but not for my build. So that's all I have for the skills, guys. So we're gonna jump right into gameplay, and I'm gonna show you the key points of this build and dominating the skies with the Turian Havoc Trooper. Now, real quick before we jump into gameplay, if you have not seen the other build for my Turian Havoc Trooper, check it out. I will have a link down in the description. It is the Bomber Turian Havoc Trooper, and it is something, guys. I definitely recommend checking that out if you're more about blowing everything on the map up. So guys, let's jump into gameplay now and see what this build is all about. Alright guys, here we go with some gameplay. This is a really straightforward build. It's all about staying in the air and shooting everything that you see with turbocharge activated. And if you can do that, then you will definitely win almost every situation that you get in, because with the extra damage resistance, high rate of fire, very large mag size, you can pretty much just take anything on, especially when it comes to Hydras, Fiends, and Destroyers. The Destroyer is a little bit different because it does have that shield, and I don't feel like this build does great against shield damage. Unless you want to slap on some Disruptor ammo, then you could really take on pretty much everything. But whenever you're going up against armored targets, especially when you're fighting the Outlaws, the Berserkers, Agents, Anarchists, Pariahs, you will just wither them down incredibly fast whenever you're in the air and have turbocharge activated. Honestly, I don't have any trouble with this build fighting any of the enemies. But that's really where you have to distinguish yourself on what fights you want to get in, because there are some engagements that you will get in that you're like, man, I can't get this, my health is real low, and at that point you really just want to back out. But like I said, right there with that Berserker, he shot me with that Flak Cannon. It did basically nothing. That's why I love this build, because whenever you have to go and fight them, it is a great time to really shine, because some of your teammates may not be able to take them on as well, but then again, you definitely can, because the Flak Cannon is not going to do that much to you, especially when you're in air. It will not stagger you, it won't drop you to the ground, plus it's not going to do that much damage because of all your extra damage resistance. So you're really oh, excuse me guys, you're really able to take them on very effectively, along with pretty much everything else. Now, with the new patch 1.05 update, sharpshooters have definitely become a much bigger threat for this build. They've become more accurate, they have more damage, and they're going to shoot more. So they're really a problem. You have to focus on them now, or just stay in cover sometimes. You just have to watch when and where you're flying. Another thing that you will notice, you will go off the map a lot just like if you watched a bomber video, I did fall off the map sometimes, but it is okay. It does not down you, it just drops your shields and some of your health, but typically it will put you back in a safer area unless you fell somewhere around a bunch of enemies. Then you're probably screwed. So you got to be careful with that, guys. Another thing, map. The map you play on is a big deal with this build. Like I said with the bomber build guide, there are 2 maps that are ideal for this build or this character in general, and that is Firebase Sandstorm and Firebase Iceberg. Now, Firebase Magma is honestly another good one. I didn't think about that when I was recording the bomber build guide, but that is another map that is really good for this. Firebase Zero that I'm on right now, it is a good map to use this build on, but it is nowhere near as good as the other 2. Firebase, it's not coming to my head, but it is the large hangar map. I believe it's in a Ket ship. That is not a good map for this build. Definitely not. You really don't want to be running this build if you know you're going to that map, because it is a lot more close quarters combat. There's not a lot of areas to fly around and be safe on, so I wouldn't feel comfortable playing that map with this build or the bomber build guide, honestly. But if you can do it and be successful at it, then hats off to you. I mean, that's impressive because of how that map is set up. So in the last map, it's not coming to my head, I can't think of it, but again, Firebase Sandstorm, Firebase Magma, and Iceberg would be my top 3 picks to fight with this build on. And another thing, like I was saying earlier, whenever you're having to fight Hydra's Fiends and Destroyers, as you can see there, the extra damage resistance that Hydra won't be able to fully kill you. Now, with the new patch, they said that they have made their sync attack lethal. Now, whenever they say sync attack, I'm not sure if they mean when it's locking onto you with rockets or if when it grabs you. That I'm not sure of. I'm going to assume, I would assume it means when it locks onto you, but I haven't been killed by one so far by it, so I don't really know what they were going for with that. If you do know, let me know down in the comments so I will know for the future. But with your extra damage resistance, it's not gonna kill you, at least before the patch, but now that's kind of a problem. But I haven't run into that issue yet, so you're just gonna have to watch out for that, guys. They can still do a lot of damage, but before the patch, they were not gonna kill you if you had any shields at all, so you just got to be careful if they are locking on to you. As well as sharpshooters, now they're definitely a much bigger problem now, so you're gonna have to focus on them. Moving on, whenever you're on the ground, you know, as you can see right here, I'm being pinned down. I can't really get out of this situation. I can at this point, and that's what I'm going to be doing. But if you're on the ground and you activate turbocharge, you still are going to be getting that giant buff for your weapon. But if you're not in the air, you will notice that there is a difference from when you're in the air with turbocharge and when you're on the ground with turbocharge. Because of the extra damage resistance, weapon damage, and everything else stacking up together, you'll notice that there is a difference. So that is why I personally feel like if you're playing this character, you need to be using aerial assault, because that is something else. Every character has a passive ability, and it really breaks down to classes for the most part, such as if they're a biotic, if they're an infiltrator. With all of them, it really breaks down by class. But with the Turian Havoc Trooper, she has aerial assault, and that is what makes her the Turian Havoc Trooper. If you are playing her and not using that, you're effectively eliminating her passive ability. And in my opinion, I don't see why you would play her if you're not going to be using that, because it is such an advantage to have and to use. So that is why I built her, focusing around her passive ability. With everything else that it comes with, Turbocharge is the best ability that she has. Flak Cannon and Incinerate, they can be good. It just really depends on how you want to use them or how you're building and speccing her skills. but Aerial Assault and Turbocharge are, in my opinion, what makes her the Turian Havoc Trooper. And it's what makes her a good character overall, because you need to use those together. Now, when you're using those together, like in this build, you will notice that you're just going to dominate everything that you're coming across. You can take on multiple groups of larger enemies, especially right here, the Pariah, the Saboteur, and the Berserker, taking on all three of them alone at the same time. You're going to be able to do it if you're smart about it. You can't really, you got to stay in the air, keep using Turbocharge, use Incinerate, Flak Cannon. You have to use everything you can, but you can definitely do it with minimal problems, really. I mean, unless you're falling off the map constantly, or you got a lot of other raiders or sharpshooters shooting at you, then you're going to have a little bit of issues. But for the most part, you're going to be able to take them on with ease, guys. So that is where this build really comes in handy, and that's something that, if you did watch the Bomber build guide, is a little bit different from the two. I don't really feel like the Bomber could jump in there and solo things like the Aerial Assault build can, so you have to pick and choose your battles accordingly. So if you haven't watched the Bomber build guide, it will be down in the description, you guys. I will also have it at the end of the video. Please be sure to go watch that if you enjoyed this build, because they're both pretty different, but in the way very similar, because they both focus on Aerial Assault, but one is all about the Revenant, the other is all about the Naladin and the Falcon. So it is a very interesting build, because everything's blowing up on that build and everything's just getting shot on this build. So it really depends on how you want to play it and what you want to be using. So definitely go check that out and see which you would like to use if you're interested in using this character. Personally, I love both builds. They're both very good builds. But they play entirely differently. So definitely go check both of them out, play with them, and see which you would rather use based on your play style. And you just have to remember that even if you think that is an awesome build, if it doesn't work with your play style, it's not going to be an awesome build for you. So definitely check both of them out, see what works best for you. And if you haven't already, check out the rest of my build guides for all the other characters, and be sure to subscribe to see all the rest of the build guides I'm coming out with. And as always, guys, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one, guys.